for my children and my grandchildren and my other posterity. And the reason I'm making it is because I was directed to by a good brother in my church, Eric Frame, when he gave me a priesthood blessing, and he asked that I sit down and take some time and make a tape and record some things, thoughts that I've had and do have now. And I've given it some thought and prayed about it. And I thought the way I would like to start is by giving a brief genealogy of my 4 generations. I was born on January the 13th, 1930 at Bucyrus, Kansas. And my father was Cecil Henry Westhoff. He was born on the 21st of November, 1896 in Olathe, Johnson County, Kansas. His father was Oliver Cromwell Westhoff, and he was born the 16th of October, 1872. And his father was Henry John Westhoff, and he was born on the 8th of April, 1841 in Holstein, Germany. And my mother was Crean Bell Dunham. Her birth was on 21st of March, 1898 in Spring Hill, Johnson County, Kansas. And her dad was William Leroy Dunham, and he was born on December the 18th, 1869 in Columbia, Whitney, Indiana. William Leroy Dunham, his father was Reuben Schisler, and he was born on the 8th of January, 1832. And his wife was Sarah Ann Kiefer, and she was born on May the 8th. She was born the 30th day of May in 1842. Daniel Harper was, I want to back up and redo this a little bit. William Leroy Dunham was married to Hattie Bell Harker, and she was born on the 29th of November, 1875 in Lancaster, Ohio. And her father was Daniel Harker, born on the 19th day of July, 1842. And he was married to Isabel Snyder, and she was born on the 25th of October, 1844. And let's see, back up on the Westhoff line, Oliver Cromwell Westhoff was married to Cynthia Martha Pickering on the 19th day of March in 1876 in Osborne County, Kansas. And her dad was Macy Malsby Pickering, and he was born on the 10th day of June, 1842 in Henry County, Indiana. This is just a brief genealogy of my 4 our four-generation pedigree chart. And the reason that I wanted to start with that was because I didn't know some of these ones back in the fourth generation, but most of the second and third, I either knew them personally or I've heard stories about them, and I wanted to just explain a little bit about why I think it's so important to know something about your ancestry. As I look at myself and my children and my grandchildren, I can see things about them that remind me of different ones of my ancestors. And I think that it's important to realize that what we are, to a large part, depends on the kind of people that our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents were. And I'd just like to start out by saying that I was born to goodly parents. And they were parents that had integrity, and they had gumption, and they were accountable. And I think these are three qualities that are admirable and desirable. And I probably knew my parents better than I did any of the rest of them. And the things that I was taught are things that I feel are important for everyone to learn. And I think that I had a very good teacher at learning those qualities that I've just mentioned about integrity, gumption, and being accountable. When we come to this part of our life, we don't have the privilege of knowing how much brain power we're going to have. We don't know what our possibilities are on this, and it's something that we don't have any control over. Our ability to learn depends on what we inherit from our forefathers, are the ones that are I want to start back and try to re-say that in a better way. I think our ability that we're born with to learn and to understand things that is something that we get from our Heavenly Father, and it's something we don't have any control over. But I think the things that we're taught by our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents are things that are maybe even more important. We can have a lot of ability, but still lack the good common sense to do what's right and to know right from wrong. And that is what I'd like to talk about here just a little bit more before I leave this genealogy part. I can see things that I inherited from my mother, and I can see things that I inherited from my father as far as the way I think about things, the way I feel about things, and just little things that come out, and not only can I see them in myself, I can see them in my children, and I can see them in my grandchildren. And I wasn't old enough to really remember my grandfather Dunham very well, but I remember stories about him, and I think that there's some things that I inherited from him that have caused me to be to some degree like I am, and I see things that I picked up from my mother, and I can see that they carry right on down through the generations. Just one example is Grandpa Dunham was a proud man, and he liked things to be polished and shining, and he was appearance oriented, and I've heard the stories that when he'd get ready to drive his team to town to do their grocery shopping or whatever he was going for, he wanted his team to go into town holding their heads up high, stepping out loudly, and everything, the buggy had to be absolutely clean from one end to the other. The horses had to be curried and brushed and looking the very best that they could. And when he sat up there, he sat up straight, and that's the way they went to town. And I don't think that I've got near as much of that as he had, but I can see some of those characteristics carrying over into my life. When I don't have a team and buggy, but when we get ready to leave to go somewhere, I like to see my car clean and neat and looking as good as it can look. And I think there's more things that are maybe more important than looks, but I think that is something that a little bit of is worthwhile. And my mother was a woman that I loved and respected, and I can see some things that I inherited from her. She liked her garden and the flowers and her yard, and she liked for them to be neat, well cared for, watered, and got a lot of joy out of having them that way. And my father was more, I would say, an intellectual type. He liked to read, to study, and to learn. And that's indeed all worthwhile things. And I didn't know my granddad Westhoff real well, but I respected him as being a quiet, honest, hard-working man. And my grandmother was his wife, was Cynthia Martha Pickering, very sweet little lady that was always helpful to anybody that she could help. And I see myself as a mixture of all these people. I want to back up here just a little bit, and I intended to say something here about Henry John Westhoff. He was Oliver's father. He come here from Holstein, Germany, excuse me, as a young man. He served his apprenticeship over in Germany and was a journeyman blacksmith. And he settled in the area of Martin City, Missouri. He had his blacksmith shop out on the state line a couple of miles south of Martin City on the Kansas side of the state line. And he was a successful businessman. He run the blacksmith there, and he shoot a lot of horses. And at that time, that's the way the freight was hauled around from Kansas City out to the outlying small communities like Martin City and others in the surrounding area. He was also was a farmer. Excuse me. He had several sons, and they learned. The boys took care of the farm mostly, and he took care of the blacksmith shop and kept the machinery in good repair. And it was there on that farm that the Westhoff clan learned to work. They learned to be credible and to have all the good qualities that go into being good, worthwhile citizens. And I wanted to start with, I wanted to give a little bit of a background as to what the times and the conditions were back in January 1930, the day I was born. My parents lived in Bucyrus, Kansas, in a little 4-room house. It was 2 rooms down and 2 rooms up. And we didn't have any plumbing facilities. Instead of a bath, we had a path. And we had a well. We pumped our water outside and brought it in and heated it and used it for washing and drinking and all those good things. On January the 13th, 1930, they tell me that it was a very cold day, the day I was born, and times were really hard. My father and my grandfather and several of my uncles were in the farming business in and around Bucyrus in the 20s due to the Depression after World War I. They all lost their farms and were forced out of the farming business. And my dad and mother had moved to Bucyrus and was living in town, and work was almost impossible to find. And when you did find it, the pay was poor. Conditions were bad. And I talked to my Uncle Harry Westhoff, and he said that he lived at Morris, Kansas, which was about 8 miles north of Bucyrus, and he ran a truck line, and then Dad would get up early and walk to Morris, and they would haul corn, ear corn from the farm to the elevator to sell it for people that had it to sell. And they would scoop that corn on the truck and then haul it to the elevator and go back and get another load. They'd spend the whole day hauling, scooping and hauling and unloading corn at the elevator. And then when it'd get dark, Dad would walk back home and have his supper and go to bed, and then he'd walk back up there and be up there to haul corn again the next day. And those were the kind of conditions and things that you had to do to pay your rent and buy your groceries and have the essentials. And always, after I didn't, my dad never said anything about that to me. I'd never heard that story until my uncle told me about it. The fact of the matter is, I knew times was hard, but I never heard my dad or mother, either one, complain about the things that they had to go through to put the food on the table for us kids to eat. I want to tell a little bit about my early life in Bucyrus as a boy. Bucyrus was a very small town where everybody knew everyone and everybody was neighbors and friends. And from as early as I can remember, I enjoyed being in that kind of an environment. My earliest memories was of helping Mom in her yard and garden and gathering up fertilizer out of the pasture to use on the flowers and the vegetables, and helping Mom with the planting and harvesting and picking of the things that we got out of the garden. This is where I first understood and realized the importance of home production and storage. We had a choice. We could raise what we needed to eat and can it and preserve it for the winter, or we could be hungry, as there wasn't any welfare, and the work was so hard to find that Dad didn't have the money to buy the groceries and foods that we needed. So that was just the way of life in that time. And I really enjoyed learning to raise things and to take care of them and how to do that. And as I grew there in Bucyrus, there weren't a lot of job opportunities, but sometimes there were things that come up that I could get a job at to make a little money to help out. And I'll just list a few of those. I think my first job was during thrashing season. They thrashed with a separator, and I got a job working for Harold Studeville, watching the gates so that the livestock didn't get out into the grain fields when the wagons went from the field to the thrashing machine. And times were hard then, and I worked a day and a half, and I got 50 cents and my dinner, and I was just as proud as I could be. And I think at that time I was probably about 6 years old. And then as I got older, I found better jobs. One of the things that brought in some extra money was I had a job mowing the cemetery, and that was before anybody had even thought about a power mower. I mowed it with a mower that not only wasn't self-propelled, but it was an old reel type mower that you had to, as you pushed it, the wheels made the blade turn and cut the grass. And every time I mowed the cemetery, I got $3. And I'd go down to collect for mowing the cemetery, and there was a little old lady, Mrs. Kelly, that took care of that. And when I'd go down to get my money, she'd say, "Well, did it need mowing already?" And as big as it was, you could just about mow all the time and just barely keep up with it when we was getting plenty of rain, and the grass was growing good. That helped me have money for my spending money. And another job that sometimes we could get there at Bucyrus was us boys would go up to the filling station, and the trucker there would haul cattle in to the Kansas City in the morning, and on his way back he'd bring a load of lime back, and he had a little spreader that he pulled behind the truck, and when he'd get back he'd hire a couple of us to get in the back of the truck and scoop the lime into that spreader, and we'd spread lime on the farmers' fields around over the country. And I think at that time we was getting about 50 cents for scooping that would be a half a load of lime into that spreader. And then when I got a little older, I got another job opportunity. There was a serum company in Kansas City that bought pigeons, and at night I'd get a flashlight and gunny sacks and go out to the farmers' places, and I'd catch pigeons out of their barn and take them home and put them in lettuce crates and have the trucker take them to Kansas City and sell them for me. The serum companies used these pigeons for test purposes on their serum, and they didn't like the pigeons down in the city because they didn't know whether they'd already been through one of those serum plants or not, and they liked them from out in the country far enough so that they knew they hadn't been into another serum company. And these were some of the things that there was available for us to do there to get a little spending money and to help with the expenses that we had. We lived in and around Bucyrus for my whole lifetime, and when I was up until I guess I was 7 or 8 years old, Dad didn't have a car, and we could go anywhere we wanted to go as long as it was within walking distance. And then if Dad was carpentering, and there was lots of times that he'd put his toolbox on his shoulder and walk to and from work, and sometimes it'd be 4 or 5 miles from home to where he'd be working. And after jobs got a little bit easier to find, he got a Model T, and so we could go up and see Grandma and Grandpa Westhoff up at Morse on just very special occasions like Christmas and maybe occasionally on a birthday. I had 2 older sisters that were loving and sometimes overprotective that I grew up with there in Bucyrus, and I got a lot of advice and attention from them sometimes. And one of kind of a funny experience, or it seems funny now, it didn't seem very funny then. When I was about 4 years old, I had a little playmate that lived there in Bucyrus, and we got into trouble once in a while, and it was about a block from where we lived. There was a big tin building up there, and one of the farmers had stored his ear corn in there, and this little playmate and I got up there in that barn, and we got to throwing ears of corn through the windows, and we was having a lot of fun until my sisters come along down through the alley and seen what was going on, and it wasn't long till I was being drugged down the alley by my sisters. And then when I got home, it wasn't long till Dad made sure that I realized that breaking glass out of the windows wasn't the proper thing to do. And I think it was one of the real good learning experiences I had, because Dad didn't spank very often, but when he gave me a spanking, he made sure that it was one that I would remember for a while. And this has probably been about 55 or 56 years ago, and I can still kind of remember that. But you know, I got spankings occasionally, but I never did feel like that my dad didn't love me. I felt like that these were things that I needed to experience to build my character and to become accountable for what I did and didn't do. And I never remember very often, maybe I don't know whether I ever remember my dad telling me that he loved me, but I never did really question whether he did or not, because I knew he did. And I don't know why, but in our family that's just kind of the way it was. I never heard my dad tell my mother that he loved her either, but I knew he did and does. And I think that these kind of experiences are what cause people to have integrity and gumption and learn right and wrong. And I've never regretted any of the punishments that I had, because I knew each time that I deserved them and that I'd be better from them. Dad was a good teacher. He grew up on the farm, and he grew up at a time when there was Dad grew up on a farm, and they done all their farm work with horses. And in order to get enough horses to do the work they had to do, his dad would take colts from people that had them. He'd break those colts to work, and then when he'd get them to where they was pretty easy to work, why people would come and get them, and they'd bring them some more colts that had never been in the harness before. So they got a lot of experience in breaking horses. And Dad told me several times, and there was 4 of Dad's brothers, and they was all about the same age, just a year or 2 difference in them. And their instructions from their dad was that if a team ever run off from them, to just not try to stop them, just let them go. Hang on, and when they run as far as they wanted to run and was ready to rest, then he said, get up there and throw the lines to them and make them run back. And he said it was very seldom that you ever had to do that, more than about 2 times till they caught on that wasn't a very good deal. And I felt like when Dad had that same philosophy on raising boys that he did breaking horses, if I would get in an attitude like I wanted to run off or be disobedient, he never let me find out that I'd run off. He just let me go as far as I wanted to go, and then I run back. And I think that's a pretty effective way of breaking horses or teaching boys how to behave. Another thing that I think worked good for my mother and Dad was they never allowed to run from one to the other and get a different opinion. If I wanted to do something and I went and asked my mother if I could do it, if it was something that she felt comfortable about giving me an answer, she'd give it to me. But if she didn't, she'd say, why don't you go ask your dad? And if I'd go ask my dad about if I could do something like that she had told me about, he'd say, what did your mother say? And I said, well, she told me I better come and ask you. But there was never any time that I ever remember that I could go from one to the other and get an inconsistent answer. If one of them told me something, the other one stuck with it, whether it was right, wrong, or whatever. And I think this is another process that builds character and teaches accountability. I didn't always agree with the answer I got, but I soon learned that whatever answer I got was going to be the same then or tomorrow or the next day or a week from then. There was not any use of going back and trying to get it changed. Some of my friends that I run around with would say, well, why don't you go ask them again? And they would do that with their parents, and a lot of times they'd talk their parents into changing their mind. But I don't ever remember one time that I don't remember trying it very many times, but when I did, I never had it to work one time for me. And this is another thing that I'm thankful for. My parents were consistent. They were firm. And when they told me no, I knew that they meant no, and that there'd be no tomorrow and the next day and next week. So we kind of knew how we stood, and I think that's another good way to have it. We had some entertainment around Bucyrus, or it wasn't a real exciting place to live, but we had to make our own fun and do things that there was available. And in the summertime, we went swimming in what few ponds there were around there, and we fished, and then in the fall and winter we would hunt and trap, and then when it'd get cold enough, we'd ice skate, and when school would start, we would play softball for a little while, and then we didn't have enough boys to have a football team, but as soon as softball season was over, we'd start playing basketball. And we were such a small school that the grade school and high school and everybody all played together. And of a morning when we'd get to school, we could go down to the gymnasium and get a basketball, and everybody played, no matter how old or what size you were. Everybody was in there, and we got used to playing together, and we pretty much always had a good basketball team at Bucyrus. We had a little advantage over the bigger schools because they had football season and we just had softball and basketball. We knew every little old bump and crook on that gymnasium floor by the time we was old enough to start playing in the games. And that was one of the things that I enjoyed about school, was playing on the basketball team. I never really enjoyed school because I think my ability to read and spell and write were so limited. The best that I could ever do at reading or spelling was about a 4th or 5th grade level. Yeah. When I was about 7 years old, we moved to a little 7-acre place on the southwest corner of Bucyrus, and I really enjoyed being able to have some pigs and chickens and cows, and I learned to really enjoy working with livestock, and from as early as I can remember, whenever anybody had asked me what I wanted to be when I got big, my answer was that I wanted to be a farmer. And I think it was in my blood because there wasn't any of my relation that was still on a farm at that time, and there wasn't any hope at all that I was going to inherit a farm. So I determined at an early age that if I ever got a farm, it was going to be from my own efforts, and so I started making preparations to reach that goal. And every opportunity that I got to get a job or to earn any money, I did it, and I started saving for the time when I could buy a farm or get started into the farming business. And Dad had a small general contracting business, and if he had anything that I could do, why, he always give me the opportunity to work for him. And this gave me some good experience as far as learning something about the building trade, and I learned to do a lot of the things that were required of general contractors. We dug our own footings and poured our own concrete with a concrete mixer. That was before there was any ready mix, and we built dairy barns and chicken houses and garages and about everything that there was any demand for. And by the time I had graduated from high school, I had gotten enough experience that I could handle most building jobs. And right after I graduated from high school, I joined the union and took out an apprenticeship in the Carpenters Union, and went to work for some of the home builders up in Kansas City. And on March 26, 1951, Marie Simon and I got married over at the Catholic Church, and we moved to Olathe for a short time. I had bought a house and a garage and a chicken house, and I remodeled the garage and the chicken house and made us an apartment and rented out the house. And we had a nice little apartment, but neither one of us was very happy there in Olathe, so we rented them both out, and rented the house that I was born in down at Bucyrus, and lived there for a while. And we decided that we didn't want that anymore, and we bought a trailer house and moved it up to the folks' place in their backyard and lived there for a short time. And then I got a chance to rent the farm out on the county line that belonged to Jim Holcomb, and we lived there on the farm. I worked in Kansas City carpentering, and gradually I acquired a little bit of livestock and machinery, and I milked cows and had some sheep and hogs and chickens, and just a little bit before we moved out there, our oldest son, Clifford, was born, and that's where he first got his taste of farming. When I'd come home from work at night, he knew that it was time to go milk, and he was still in diapers, but Marie had put warm clothes on him, and we'd wrap him up in blankets and put him in a laundry cart or a garden cart, and he'd go with me to the barn, and I milked my cows by hand, and he was right there the whole time, and he really acted like he enjoyed the cows and the calves and the sheep and everything. And we lived there on that place for about 3 years, and Clifford got big enough that he went after the cows on his tricycle and brought them in for me to milk, and he fed the sheep and chickens and stuff with these little buckets, and he hauled wood into the house for our heating stove in a little toy wagon that we had. And these were enjoyable times, I think, for him and us both. And Dad built a house for a guy up in Merriam, and he took in a 80-acre farm there, half a mile south of school, on the deal to build him a house. And Dad sold the farm to me, and it was, pretty sadly run down shape. And I remodeled the house and made it modern and put in new plaster and stucco and insulated it and made us a nice little home to live in. And I built ponds and terraces and waterways and filled the gullies and sowed grass, and I got it cleaned up pretty good. And this was a place where Janet was born when we was living there. And we lived there until Steve was born. And when before Steve was born, we sold that 80 acres and we bought 400 acres down between Lewisburg and Pale. And so we moved down there when Steve was still just a baby. And that was the farm where the kids done most of their growing. And it was we had horses down there, and the kids enjoyed riding those horses, and we all worked together, and we all had responsibilities, and we all had fun together. And we lived there until Marie started having some nerve trouble, and they advised her to go somewhere and get her a job if she wanted to be able to maintain her health, mental health. So we built a house up on Dad's 7 acres at Bucyrus and moved back to Bucyrus for a few years. And all of these times were good times, and we had plenty of work to do so that our children never wanted for a job or something to do. And it was while we were at Bucyrus that Clifford started his hay crew business. I helped him get a truck and a loader, and he started hauling hay in and out of the field for farmers around Bucyrus, Spring Hill and Lewisburg area. And it was a good way for him to make some spending money, but it was kind of hard on Mom's nerves. The people, when they get hay down and it goes to looking like rain, they get on that telephone and really get impatient. And Clifford done that all through his high school years, and then later on, when Clifford went on his mission, Steve kind of took over the hay business, and he ran a crew again. And so our children all learned what hard work and hot weather and sweating was all about. I want to back up here a little bit. I got rambling on about our farm experiences and the different places we live. And I forgot to mention probably the most important thing that happened in our life. When we were living out on Jim Holcomb's farm, the county line between Bussards and Spring Hill, we come in contact with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it was through the efforts of my cousin, Opal Westhoff Coleman, that she was the first member of our family that I'm aware of that had ever been taught or had the opportunity to hear the teachings of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And she was on a visit down at Junction, or at Jefferson City, Missouri, visiting her sister that had a laundry down there. And she come in contact with some missionaries there at that laundry, and her older sister had invited the missionaries over to give them a discussion, and Opal was there, and she felt the spirit of the missionaries and of the teachings that they gave there that night. So when she got back home, she asked her dad's permission to call them and there in Kansas City and have them come out and teach them. And he gave her the permission, and when they came out, they accepted the gospel and were baptized. And it was through her dad, Clarence Westhoff, that I first heard about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We were carpentering for the same company, but on different jobs, and one of the guys that was working with Uncle Clarence that got transferred over where I was telling me, he said, "Your uncle's sure a religious man." And I said, "Well, what makes you think that?" And he said, "Well, he's been telling me he goes to church every Sunday." And I said, "Well, you don't know my uncle very well." I said, "He tells a lot of lies." I said, "I never heard tell of him going to church." And he said, "Well," he said, "I believe he does." And so it wasn't but a few days till he got moved over there on the same job where I was working. And I just got right after him. I said, "What do you mean telling these people that you go to church?" And he said, "Well, I do go to church." I said, "I never heard tell you going to church before." And he said, "Well, I haven't gone for a long time," but he said, "I'm going now." And I noticed something else about him. He'd always been a heavy smoker, and I kept watching him. I didn't see him smoking any cigarettes. So I said, "Did you quit smoking?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I had to quit smoking to join the church." And I said, "Well, what kind of church would that be?" And he told me a little bit about the Mormon church. And at the time, I didn't smoke, but I chewed tobacco. He said, he kept telling me a little bit about the church. And finally, one day, he said, "Well, I'm afraid I'm just getting you mixed up." He said, "How would it be if I just brought the missionaries out to your house and let them tell you about it? He said, they can do a lot better job than I can." And so I said, "All right, that'd be fine." And he said, "You'll have to quit chewing that tobacco, though, if you want to join the church." And I said, "Well, I won't join that church if I got to quit chewing that tobacco." And he didn't say any more, but in a day or two, he brought the missionaries out, and that was Robert Hall and John Swindle, and they gave us a discussion there at the farm, and Marie and I both felt the Spirit of the Lord touch our hearts, and we just couldn't hardly stand to see him leave. We wanted him to tell us more. each time they came out, and we certainly were interested. We had been married in the Catholic Church over at Westhoff, and that wasn't working out real good. Part of the time we went to the Catholic Church, and part of the time we went to the Methodist Church, and most times, though, we didn't go to church at all. And so the closest church to where we lived was over at 71st and Gregory Boulevard. So we went and visited their church several times, and we felt inspired to join the church from the things that they had taught us and the feelings that we had from it. And so we become active members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and on January on February the 11th, 1957, we went out to Salt Lake City and were sealed in the Salt Lake Temple for time and eternity, and had Clifford and Janet sealed to us also for time and eternity. And on that same trip, we went to the church patriarch, Brother Elder G. Smith, and got our patriarchal blessings. And I'd just like to read a few of the blessings that he gave me at that time. Thou hast had the privilege of being born in this a choice generation for a wise purpose, and through which thou shalt have special experiences for thy guidance and training and preparation to assist thee in fulfilling thy mission upon the earth. For a special mission was given unto thee at the time of thy birth. The Lord shall continue to give unto thee guidance and direction, with privileges and opportunities and special experiences to further strengthen and prepare thee in fulfilling thy mission upon the earth. Obstacles and barriers have been removed from thy pathway in advance as a result of thy faithfulness. The Lord shall continue to so bless thee that obstacles and barriers shall be removed from thy pathway, and thou shalt be given guidance and direction to assist thee in accomplishing thy righteous endeavors. Be diligent in being of service unto others and in teaching unto them the principles of the gospel, and thou shalt have success in thy efforts. Thou shalt be warned in advance of difficulties, trials, dangers, and temptations, and thou shalt be given guidance to assist thee to overcome and avoid them, and shall be warned in advance as thou shalt heed the whisperings and promptings of that still small voice. Continue to live in accordance with the laws of the gospel, keeping the commandments of God to the best of thine ability, and especially the word of wisdom, and other laws of the gospel, and thou shalt receive the blessings promised of health and strength of body and of mind. Physical dangers and difficulties shall pass. By thee, giving unto thee blessings in disguise, and thou shalt have the privilege of living to a good age, to enable thee to further fulfill the duties and responsibilities required of thee. Thou shalt also receive the greater blessings promised of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. For thy mind shall be receptive to true principles. Thine understanding and knowledge of the principles of the gospel and the plan of life and salvation shall continually be increased unto thee. Be diligent in searching the Scriptures and in studying from good books, and thou shalt be given further knowledge and understanding for thy good, temporally as well as spiritually. That was just a part of the patriarchal blessing that I received at the time we went through our temple. And this has been a guide and an inspiration to me throughout the time since then. And I've certainly seen those things happen that it says would happen, that obstacles would be removed ahead of time, and that there would be things prepared, and that I would be protected from the things that was listed in my patriarchal blessing. This is just a few of the things that I highlighted that the patriarch, Elder G. Smith, blessed Marie with. And some of these things are the same thing that were in mine. Thou was born in this, a choice generation, for a wise purpose. A special mission was given unto thee at the time of thy birth. I feel like that by this being in both of our patriarchal blessings, while those years back in 1930 were tough and hard times, I believe the way this blessing reads, that that's a kind of a situation people have to be in, or not, maybe don't have to be, but it seems like that they grew up with more of the what they need to be, turn out to be strong individuals. And I've noticed in the Book of Mormon, when people are brought to be humble because of the condition of the times, that they seek out the Lord, and they seem like they always prosper. And then when things get easy for them, and they don't have to work so hard, they go to feeling like the things that they got are because of what they have done, not what the Lord's done for them. And it seems like that's just kind of human nature. And this is another thing that I want to point out about Marie's blessing. Thou shalt be warned in advance of difficulties, trials, dangers, and temptations, and thou shalt be given guidance to assist thee to overcome and avoid them, through which thou shalt be strengthened and better prepared in fulfilling thy mission upon the earth. Continue to live in accordance with the laws of the gospel, especially the word of wisdom. And I think this is another thing that's a duplicate to mine. In both of ours it says to live in accordance with the laws of the gospel, especially the word of wisdom. So we have heeded that as near as we possibly could, and we've always had the blessings that are promised from it. And it says, for thy mind shall be receptive to true principles. Thou shalt be an influence and power for good, especially among those of thy sex and thine associates, for they shall come unto thee seeking counsel and advice. The younger generation shall come unto thee seeking counsel and advice, and thou shalt be an influence and power for good among them. The Lord shall continue to reward thee richly for the generous use of thy time. The providing care of the Lord shall be over thee, that thou and thy household shall not be in need for the necessities of life. Thou shalt not lack for friends and associates, for they shall be raised up unto thee in times of need, and be a blessing and a comfort unto thee. And these things have all happened that was predicted would happen back in 1957, and it was certainly a blessing to have these to use as a guide in knowing what we needed to do to raise our family and to live the gospel to the best of our ability. I thought of a couple of stories that I'd like to tell. I'd like for my grandchildren to know about these. Dad was working on a schoolhouse over in DeSoto, Kansas, and they worked late one night and was pouring some concrete. And when they got ready to go home, he had his pickup truck parked over across the street from the schoolhouse in front of an apartment house. And while he was working there was a guy that lived there had pulled his car right up against the bumper of Dad's truck. So when Dad got over there to his truck, he asked, the guy was sitting out on the front porch rocking in his rocking chair, and Dad asked him, he said, "Is this your car here?" And he said, "Yes." And he said, "Do you want to move it so I can get out?" The guy said, "No." He said, "That's my parking spot." And he said, "I'm not moving." And Dad said, "Are you sure you don't want to move that car so I can get out?" And he said, "No." He said, "I'm in my own parking spot." He said, "You'll have to just get out the best way you can." And so Dad got in the truck and he pulled up as far as he could against the car in front of him, and he put that old International truck in reverse, and he just backed into that guy's car just as hard as he could hit it. He drove it back about 4 or 5 feet that first time, and by that time the guy was coming down off the porch to see what was going to happen, and Dad pulled up against the car in front of him again, and that time he had a little more room, and he really mashed in the front of that car that time. And so, but then he had plenty of room to get out, so he just drove out the street, and right on down the highway he went home, or come home. And the next day, he went back to work and parked over there again, and here come the law down there, and they said, "Did you back into Mr. So-and-so's car here last night?" And he said, "Yeah." Well, he said, "I think you're in trouble." And Dad said, "Well, I don't know why." He said, "Well, you left the scene of an accident." And Dad said, "Well, who in the blankety blank told you there was any accident?" He said, "I told him asked him if he wanted to move that car, and he told me to get out of there the best way I could, and that's what I did." And that guy said, "Well, that's not the way he said it happened." And Dad said, "Well, that's the way it did happen anyhow." And that was the last he heard from it. So that just gives you a little bit of an idea about my dad and how he handled things. I've got another story that seemed like I learned from my dad and my children and everybody, but when Clifford was about 6 years old, he got to where he thought that he ought to tell Janet what to do quite a little bit, and Janet was 3 years younger than Clifford, and she got to where she kind of resented Clifford telling her what to do and what not to do, and we decided that maybe that wasn't too good an idea to have him giving so many orders. So just a day or two before this incident happened, I told him, And I said, you don't have to tell Janet what to do. I said, you just do what you're supposed to and let Janet do what she's going to do, and if she needs correcting, I'll correct her. So Clifford didn't say anything. He just listened. And the next day I was sowing clover or Lespedeza seed, and it's been real wet that spring, and I hadn't been able to get in the field to sow it with the tractor, so I had put the seed on a trailer and took it down there and strung it out along the edge of the field where I thought I'd be needing it. And I had a walking cedar, and I was walking back and forth. It was a 1/4 mile rows, and I'd crank that seed out and sow that seed down and then back. And Marie was pregnant with Steve and wasn't feeling very good, so I'd taken both of the kids with me, and they was staying up at the end where the seed was, and was playing up there. And I'd sowed Lespedeza probably for about an hour, and I got up to the end where the sacks was and was ready to fill my cedar with seed. And I looked over there, and Janet had turned one of those sacks of Lespedeza seed over and was right in the middle of it, just scattering it everywhere. And I was so surprised, I hollered at Clifford, and I said, Clifford, what did you let her do that for? And Clifford straightened up real straight and looked me right in the eye, and he said, don't you remember what you told me? You told me that if she needed correcting, that you'd do it. And he made his point. I didn't say any more to Clifford, but Janet figured out that I wouldn't. This is Saturday. This is Sunday, September the 21st, and I was replaying my tape, and I realized that I'd retaped over a part of a story that I was telling about Clifford and Janet and spilling the Lespedeza seed. And I got to the part where Clifford had told me that I had just told him a day or two before that if Janet needed correcting, that I would do it, for him not to be a bossing her around. And the thing about that, the thing I wanted to finish about that was that I did, I think, make my point with Janet that I wanted her to be accountable for what she did, and for Clifford not to be the one to be correcting her. And I think after I explained to her about the Lespedeza seed and what it cost to buy the seed, that she did understand that she shouldn't be emptying over sacks of seed and scattering them out on the ground the way she did. And apparently it worked, because I don't ever remember ever trying it again. I've had some more thoughts since I last taped, and I'd like to get them on the tape for my grandchildren to use for counsel. I've reread my patriarchal blessing, and I've reread Marie's patriarchal blessing, and in both of those blessings it warned us about being faithful to the word of wisdom. And so I'd like to just leave that counsel with my grandchildren, that if it was important for the patriarch to bring this out in both of our patriarchal blessings, that I felt that it was important that they remember to keep the word of wisdom throughout their life. and that it would be as much of a guide for them as it has for us in our life. Also, I would like to give them a little bit of counsel as far as striving to gain a testimony of the truthfulness of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and what a strength and power it can be in their life if they do. I know that it has been a big help in our life, in the way that we have lived. And I know that if they will be true to it, that it'll be a strength in their life also. There are things that are going on in the youth of our church that I feel that are a big waste of time and causes them to not get the full benefit that they can from their church teachings by watching a lot of television and playing video games. I feel like that is a waste that shouldn't be happening, and I would like to counsel against that kind of a thing going on in excess. The mates that they choose is going to have a big effect on the children that they'll have in their homes. And they certainly should pick someone that they can be happy with, that they enjoy being with, and they're good people. What kind of car they got or what kind of clothes they wear, the cute little things they say are not that important in the long run, but it's important that you know what their parents are like, and what their grandparents were like, and their uncles and their aunts, because that's what you can expect from your children. And I just would like to really come on strong on this point, because just for an example, I'd like to explain to you a little bit of how that works. And this was with animals, but it's the same idea. The first sheep I got after I moved over here where we live now, the first lamb crop I got, I had a 75% crop of lambs, and I wasn't satisfied with that kind of production, so I started looking around for sheep that had the genetic ability to raise more lambs than that. And after about 4 or 5 years now, I've got my lamb crop production up to 200 or plus % lamb crop, and that's just how much difference it makes by being selective and choosing good mates to take to the temple and to be sealed for time and eternity. And I want you to all of the grandchildren to understand that and to think about it when they make that decision.
What do you want?
I come to take you home.
Little you have hypoglycemia and you're going to be tired and you're going to be depressed, and if you have too much you're going to run the danger of having diabetes. And so the pancreas, of course, is extremely important in this, and it's very dangerous if it is inhibited by negativity coming through the hypothalamic pituitary axis. The gonads are our sex glands, and we know how responsive our sexuality is to mental and emotional negativity. And you can see why. Now I'm asking you to break some very long established habits. And I'm asking you to make it a point of discipline. Just refuse when a feeling of anger or of resentment comes to you, to recognize that if you let it exist within you, you're hurting yourself. And you're not hurting anybody else. You're not getting even with anybody. You think the person that you're resenting even knows about it, or if he did, he would care? Absolutely not. And so it's important to hold in mind always that you are going to make as dramatic a change in your lifestyle as an alcoholic makes when he decides never to drink again. I'm asking you never, and I mean never, it's useless, it's silly to use these and all the other negative things. Get rid of them. How do you get rid of them? As soon as they begin to crop up, the great thing is to say, cancel, cancel. And then, to fill in the vacancy, concentrate on gratitude. We have so many things to be grateful for that we just take for granted. We have perquisites in our civilization that our ancestors wouldn't dream about. We live a much more luxurious life than the kings of the 16th and 17th century did. Be grateful for all the people that contribute to your well-being. Be grateful for your life. Be grateful for the wonderful body you have. Be grateful for the knowledge that you have to protect it physically, mentally, and emotionally. Now, you really live in your subconscious mind because all of your thoughts, all of your skills, all of your wisdom are there. It's your only ability for making decisions. The conscious mind does not have memory. When you have a decision to make, the conscious mind sends it right down into the subconscious. And that marvelous part of this wonderful computer immediately scans all the data that is relevant to that challenge or that opportunity or whatever. And out comes a consensus. And it happens so fast we think we've made a conscious decision. We haven't. We've made a subconscious, feeling, mental decision. Now, obviously, the subconscious is terribly important if that's where you really live. Wouldn't it be wonderful to get inside that? Wouldn't it be wonderful to have the technique to know how to get inside your own subconscious mind? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do right now. When something bad happens to us, we do something physical. in order not to feel as bad. If we have a bad toothache, we pinch ourselves so it won't feel so much. If somebody says something bad to us, we swear or hit or, we're always doing something physical so we won't feel as strongly. Well, now, because we're going inside the subconscious mind, I want you to feel. And in order to guarantee that you won't have any physiological distraction from feeling, I am going to give you a relaxing exercise so your body just won't enter into it. And what we're going to do is drop down into the alpha level. While you've been listening to me, you've been functioning somewhere between 14 and 60 cycles. I hope close to 60. But now we're going to drop down to somewhere between 7 and 14. And we're going to do that through relaxation and through allowing yourself to be led into a narrowing concentration. What we're going to do is put the body to sleep. And that's not a very good word because we associate sleep with nighttime sleep when we're unconscious. On the contrary, as we drop into this body sleep, your mind is going to become more alert, more aware, and more highly focused on the concepts that we will be sharing. So please be conscious now of your head and allow it to relax completely. Relax all the structures of your neck. Relax all the muscles. Relax the dissolve tension in the nerves and in the vessels and in the ligaments and in the vertebrae. And now feel that relaxation trickling down into your shoulders and allow your shoulders to droop and relax and be soft and pliable. Feel that relaxation spreading across the entire shoulder area and traveling down your arms all the way to your fingertips. Now feel that relaxation flowing down from your shoulders into your back, relaxing all those great muscles, and flowing further down, your hips becoming heavy, your legs loose and relaxed, all the way down to the soles of your feet and the tips of your toes. And as we relax, we understand that colors will help us. Visualize the color red and associate it with relaxation. Now visualize the color purple and visualize it with health, being healthy on all levels. And visualize the color blue and allow that relaxation to become deeper and deeper. Letting go now more and more as you erase all tension from your forehead. Erasing all tension from all the structures of your face, your eyes, your cheeks, your lips, your chin. Allow your face to reflect peacefulness, tranquility. Feel that tranquility surrounding your body, entering into your body, circulating through your body, and causing every one of the trillions of cells in your body to be relaxed and functioning in harmony. Letting go now more and more as I count 20, 19, 18, dropping away more and more. 17, 16, 15. With every breath you take and continue to take, continue to relax more and more. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, way down. With every word you hear me say, continuing to relax. Now the thought comes to us that having gained this wonderful insight into the subconscious mind, we will want to go back. And I hope that you will go back every night just before you drop off into nighttime sleep. I hope that you will take 2 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever you want, to relax your body as I've showed you, to count down, to intensify the relaxation, and then to be willing to drop into your subconscious mind. Take a nature walk if you wish. It helps to deepen your relaxation. And then when you get inside your subconscious mind, there's one more thing that we must emphasize, and that is when you put a goal deliberately into your subconscious mind, that wonderful part of the computer never sleeps, and it will continually nudge you in the direction of the fulfillment of that goal. It'll also nudge you away from those things that would inhibit your achieving that goal. So in a sense, you have a way of helping to decide your future. It is strength, it is power to use for yourself. Well, it's time now to come back into this area where I'm talking. And at the count of 5, you will come back well, feeling well and strong, and feeling that you now have the ability to avoid negative thinking, that you understand what mental detoxification is, and that most of all, you know how to drop into the alpha state and control the wonderful opportunities that the subconscious mind offers you. At the count of 5, wake up feeling very well indeed. 1, gathering all this information together and focusing it, realizing you won't remember it all consciously, but remember that it is recorded in your subconscious mind and is available for you to explore. 2, projecting this information into your personal life with discipline, reality and discipline. 3, you're coming up a little bit more now. 4, a little bit more. And 5, wide awake.
In this class, you will learn more about the alpha level of mind. You will also learn to use the alpha technique for managing stress, creating positive emotional health, and turning past negative memories into positive emotional experiences.
Welcome to the Emotional Detoxification class. This is the second in the Alpha series of classes. Now, what I'd like to do first, before we actually get into the content of the class, is to review for you what Alpha is. Now, the brain operates an electromagnetic energy, and that energy can be measured in cycles per second. Now, if a brain is operating at between 14 and around 60 cycles per second, it's at what we call the beta level. Now, the beta level is when we're conscious, we're thinking, we're throwing ideas around, we're making choices, sort of like I am now at the beta level. The alpha level is between 7 and 14 cycles per second. And at this level of mind, we are in contact with our subconscious mind. It's our creative part of our mind. It's that part of the mind where, when we are in contact with it, our body is doing the healing. It's where creative ideas happen. It's where things that we tell our subconscious mind begin to draw toward us that which we expect. We learned in the mental detoxification class that the thoughts that we put into our memory bank, the neural pathways that we establish, those are what create for us that which we expect or that which we set ourselves up for. So we might as well think positive and life-affirming and healing thoughts rather than negative, and toxic thoughts. If we slow the brainwave patterns down to 3.5 to 7 cycles per second, we're at the theta level of mind. And at the theta level of mind, it's the deep meditation, okay? We're not in contact really with our subconscious mind because we're all past that level into a deep meditation or a deep sleep. Now, between 1/2 and 3.5 cycles per second, we're at the delta level. And the delta level of mind is the absolute unconscious level of mind. Now, if we were to slow our brain waves down below 1/2 to 0, we might be at what you would call the omega level of mind. Omega as in over, finished, we would be dead. Fortunately, the brain operates as a self-correcting mechanism, and under most circumstances will not get to that level of mind. It's only at death, or what we call brain death, where that level of mind happens. Now, our mind goes from level to level all throughout the day and all throughout the night. During the day, our mind goes from the alpha level to the beta level and back and forth. For example, when you're driving down the freeway and you're sort of daydreaming and spaced out, and all of a sudden you kind of wake up and you may have missed a turn on the freeway, your mind has been at the alpha level of mind. Now, you may have had a problem that you were thinking about or something you wanted to deal with, and your mind just sort of went into the alpha level. And at that point, you may have just all of a sudden, bam, had the solution to that problem. Now, even though your mind is at the alpha level when you're driving and it's as though you're on automatic pilot, if something were to happen, all of a sudden you would snap back to the beta level and you would react to it. In other words, your mind has a way of making sure that it's at the appropriate level of mind. Now, when you're sleeping, your mind will go from the alpha level to the theta level and to the delta level and back up to the theta and the alpha and back and forth. Of course, it's not at the beta level because you're not conscious, you're asleep. If you've heard of REM sleep occurs when you're dreaming. And if you sleep with someone or you walk into a room where there's somebody sleeping and you notice that the eyeballs are going very rapidly under their eyelids, back and forth, as though they're watching a movie, that's referred to as REM sleep. And that's when they are at the alpha level. And they'll be dreaming. It's as though they're watching the dream occur. Next time you have an opportunity and you notice this, you'll realize that you're watching somebody actually dreaming. That's the alpha level. Now, the mind will go from level to level by itself all the time during the day. But we can also choose to go from one level to another. We can, at any moment, go from the beta level down to the alpha level. And this is what these classes, the mental detoxification, the emotional detoxification, and the instant relaxation classes are about, allowing us to tap into the subconscious mind and allow us to relax, allow our body to do its healing, allow the creative powers of the subconscious mind to emerge, tap into the memory bank where all the answers in the entire universe are, and to be our best and to do our best. Now, in the mental detoxification class, you learned that the thoughts you put into your memory bank are the thoughts that attract to you that which you expect. And you set your goals there, and you visualize there, and you make affirmations there, and you send healing energy throughout the body at that level. In the emotional detoxification class, we're going to learn that not only can you put thoughts there, but also you can do something about your stress level, and you can choose the feelings. Just as you can choose the thoughts that you put into your subconscious mind, you can choose your feelings. You can choose to be happy. You can choose to have gratitude, love, acceptance, and other positive emotions. Or you can choose to feel hate, envy, regret, jealousy, and those sorts of emotions. But what's important to realize here is that what you choose is what you're doing for yourself. In other words, if you choose a negative emotion, you're actually sending poisons. It triggers a chemical reaction in your body which sends poisons throughout your body. Now, think about the last time you felt angry or resentful or jealous. You could just feel the stress level increase. You could just feel the poisons going through your body. You could feel yourself becoming more and more unhappy and unhealthy. But think about the last time you heard a good joke, or the last time you had a really wonderful, joyous feeling. Feel that, then remember how you felt. Positive, healing emotions. Norman Cousins, in his book Anatomy of an Illness, talked about how he actually, by watching Marx Brothers movies and other funny movies, laughed himself to health. What did he do? He sent endorphins from his brain, which are actually chemicals and hormones sent from the brain, which send healing energy throughout the system. He had a disease they didn't even know what it was. But by sending these endorphins and laughing and so forth, he actually cured himself and wrote that book and others. Now, just as we can send the positive and negative thoughts, we're going to learn now how to deal with our stress and how to send positive and healing emotions through our body. Let me begin by talking about stress. Now, I don't have to say much about stress because we all know what excess stress can do. There's a lot of research on it, and most of us have experienced it. Some of us have experienced the extreme examples of excess stress and the buildup of stress. Stress can lead to heart attacks, ulcers, even cancer. In our relationships, stress can cause us to be snappy with our mate or our loved ones, or, in the extreme examples, can lead to alcohol abuse, which in turn might lead to broken relationships. On the job, excess stress can lead to burnout, poor career performance, and so forth. Now, most people consider stress to be a wholly negative thing, and we want to eliminate stress, but that's not true, because there's another side to stress as well, and that's the positive side. For example, if you're walking across the street and a car comes careening around the corner, stress tells you to get out of the way. The stress of hunger tells you to eat so that you can survive. So stress has some survival value. Not only that, but stress can actually increase your performance. When you're going in for a job interview, for example, stress tells you to dress appropriately, to prepare for the interview, and so forth. It's only when stress becomes too much where it presents a problem. So we don't want to eliminate stress. Rather, what we want to do is to manage stress properly. Now, how are we going to do this? Well, in order to discuss the issue of stress, what I'd like to do is use an example. We're going to return now to the interview situation, the job interview. Now, there are two people who are going in for an interview. One person is Roy, and one person is Sheila. Now, Roy's a beta kind of guy. When he found out that his interview had been granted, he decided he was going to prepare for the interview. So for days before his interview, he went over in his mind every possible question that might be asked and every possible answer he would have. Over and over and over again he went. Every day he would go and look in the mirror and say, "Hello, sir, my name is Roy." He would practice the interview over and over and over again. Every possibility he was going to have covered. Well, the night before the interview, he was still doing this. He was still going through his mind every possible question they could ask him, every possible answer he could have, because he was going to be prepared. Now, note that he's very much in the beta. He's going and throwing ideas around, and this possibility and that possibility might arise in the interview. Well, the night before the interview, when he was trying to go to sleep, it was very difficult for him. More questions came up into his mind, more situations, more possible answers. Well, Roy had sort of a restless sleep, and he woke up exhausted. So he went into the interview. When he got to the interview, still these thoughts were going through his mind. What if this? Ah, then that's the answer. What if that? Oh, well, here's the answer. He was sweating. He was nervous. He was breathing in a shallow kind of manner. To cover it up, when he was sitting in the waiting room, he grabbed a magazine and he was flipping through it so people wouldn't see how nervous he was. Finally, after what seemed like about 5 hours, his name was called. Roy went into the interview room, still nervous, extended his sweaty paw to the interviewer and said, "Hello, sir, my name is Roy." The only problem was the interviewer was a woman, and the interview went downhill from there. He had known right away that he had blown it. He had rehearsed things over and over and over, and yet he was relying on the beta part of his mind to get him through the interview. His stress level was high. Now let's look at how Sheila handled her interview. Sheila also was one who believed in being prepared. So when she was notified that she had an interview, she went to the library, she looked up the annual reports of the company, she looked up magazine articles, newspaper articles on the company. She even talked to people who had done business with the company. She saw that over the last 3 quarters the company had been slipping, and she started thinking, I wonder what I can do to help turn that company around in a positive way. Well, the evening before her interview, she called a halt to the research phase of her preparation. She said, I've done all I can do. I've got all the information that I need for that interview. I'm going to simply put it in my subconscious mind and allow the creative force of my subconscious to help me in that interview situation. So she went to the alpha level. She said she's going to do the best she can do, and she drifted off into a peaceful sleep. The next morning, she woke up rested, got dressed appropriately for the interview, showed up at the interview room. She was a little bit nervous. There was a little bit of stress. After all, you know, this is a job in her career. On the other hand, she was allowing herself to be at the alpha level and calm. She knew that the power of her subconscious mind would help her. So she was sitting in the waiting room. She wasn't sweating or anything like that. She was taking nice, deep breaths, bringing lots of nice healing energy and oxygen into her system. And when her name was called, she went into the interview. She said, hello, ma'am, my name is Sheila. And she blitzed the interview. She did fantastic. She knew the position of the company in the industry. She knew that it had been slipping the last 3 quarters. She had creative ideas. She had the facts. She had the figures. She could quote all sorts of things and facts. And it was obvious that Sheila was a winner. It was obvious that she had prepared, and yet she hadn't over-prepared. She hadn't gone through in her mind every possible thing, because if you do that, of course, the first thing that comes up you're not prepared for, you get flustered. So the next time that you go to the alpha level, tell your subconscious mind that you'll be able to handle any situation that comes along in a confident manner. The next time that car comes around the corner, you'll simply step back casually. Or perhaps you'll pretend to be a bullfighter and twirl your cape as the car goes by. Now let's talk about the emotions. At the beginning of this class, I said that just as we choose our thoughts, we can also choose our emotions. And let's see how that works. Let's return now to Roy and Sheila about 2 weeks after their interview. When Roy got the letter thanking him for his participation in the interviews, telling him that there had been many highly qualified candidates and that someone else had been selected, he wasn't surprised. But he sure was angry. For the past 2 weeks, he'd been going over and over, oh, geez. Hello, sir, my name is Roy. Well, what a dummy. And wouldn't you know, they'd have a woman interviewer. Women are taking over. A man doesn't have a chance anymore. Resentment, anger, drip, drip, poison surging through his system. And he threw in a little sour grapes as well. Oh, I hope the company goes down the tubes. They haven't been doing well. They probably won't do well. Good thing I didn't get the job anyway. Drip, poisons, drip through his system. Now, who do you think those thoughts and feelings hurt? The interviewer? She wasn't even aware of them. The company president? He wasn't aware of them. The only person that those poisons and those negative feelings were hurting were Roy. Now, you might say, wouldn't you be disappointed if you applied for a job and didn't get it? Well, yeah, I'd be disappointed. I'd be a little bit disappointed. But then I would go on from there, and I'd take a lesson from Sheila. Let's look in on her now. I bet you thought that Sheila got the job. Well, she didn't. As a matter of fact, the whole interview situation was a setup. They knew who was going to get the job beforehand. They just had to go through the formality. But when Sheila got her letter thanking her for the interview, telling her there had been many highly qualified candidates, and so forth, she didn't feel as disappointed as Roy. Why not? Well, for the past 2 weeks, she'd been combing the newspapers for more job opportunities. She'd been sending out her resume. She'd done some library research, the same as she had for this. When she had walked out of the other interview, she said, boy, I feel good. That was a great interview. I did fabulous. And if I don't get this job, then I'll get the next one. If I don't get that, I'll get another one. A better thing will come along. Now, this isn't a Pollyannish sort of an attitude. This is good, strong, positive and affirmative thoughts and feelings. So by the time her letter came from the company, she already had 2 more job interviews lined up. Now, who do you think is going to get a job first, Sheila or Roy? And who do you think is going to have better relationships in this life, Sheila or Roy? And who's going to do better in life, Sheila or Roy? Well, Sheila, of course. Now, at the beginning of the program here in this class, I said that not only can we choose our feelings, but we can also change our feelings and our thoughts about what has happened to us in the past. Now, how can we do this? Well, let's look in on Roy about 2 years later, okay? He's been going over that interview situation in his mind every once in a while, not as frequently now as he did at the beginning, but every time he thinks about it, he gets the same sort of negative feelings that he had before. Resentment, anger, poisoning himself with these sorts of feelings and sending the poisonous chemicals through his body. Now, how can we help Roy? Well, here's how we can do it, and we're going to do it with the alpha technique, and then we're going to do it ourselves. What we're going to do is ask Roy to go to the alpha level. We're going to help him go to the alpha level. When he's at the alpha level, he's going to replay that interview situation, and he's going to replay it exactly as it happened, up to the point where he felt the terrible, poisonous negativity going through his body. He's going to prepare for the interview by going over the possible questions and answers. He's going to have a lack of sleep the night before. He's going to get up. He's going to go to the interview. His hands are going to be sweaty. He's going to be flipping through that book. He's going to be nervous, shallow breathing, and so forth. His name's going to be called. When he goes in, he's going to put out his hand and say, "Hello, sir, my name is Roy." And he's going to notice that there's a woman interviewer, and he's going to just feel that sinking feeling that he felt that, oh no, I've blown this interview. He's going to really get into that sinking feeling, that negative feeling. But now we're going to give Roy a second chance. Something wonderful is going to happen, and this is what it is. We're going to let Roy use the incredible creative power of his subconscious mind to rewrite and to recreate the ending any way he wants. Just any way he would want that interview to have gone until he gets a positive feeling that sends endorphins or other positive and healing energy throughout his body. For example, he could put out his hand and say, "Hello, sir, my name is Roy." The interviewer could look up, and he could say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I guess I'm nervous." The interviewer could then simply say, "Most people are nervous in an interview situation. Why don't you just relax and sit down?" Then he can imagine himself going through a perfectly wonderful interview, or anything else he chooses. It's up to him. If he realizes how creative and masterful his subconscious mind is, especially when at the alpha level, he will come up with some wonderful and creative solutions to that situation. Now every time he thinks about that interview, he'll have a positive feeling. He'll send positive energy throughout his body. Now you might say, look, what's happened has happened. It's done. There's nothing he can do about it. But what is important is how we feel now. Not how we felt then, not with the thoughts and feelings that we had then. We're living now. We're not living 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. What's important is how we feel at this moment, right now. And by changing this scenario, and by changing the situation, we can change from a negative, hurtful emotion to a positive emotion. I used to be a suicidologist and bereavement counselor. And I did workshops and seminars, and some of them were very well attended, hundreds and hundreds of people. Well, one time I did a convention. And in the convention situation, like a teacher's convention or something like that, there are usually several speakers going on at the same time, so people have to choose what session they're going to go to. Well, they had me in a very large room with chairs for perhaps 400 people, and right next to me was another speaker, and that person had about 400 chairs. But in order to get into his section, people had to walk in through my door and walk through, you know, the accordion sort of things that divide rooms in large convention centers, had to walk through that door into theirs. Well, people started filing in, and it was probably 15, 20 minutes before the sessions were to begin. And they walked right into mine, and right through the door, and right into this other guy's. Now, I'm not talking about half the people. I'm talking about all of them except maybe 20. So there must have been 400 or 500 people that walked into my session and walked through the door. I was mortified. I said, oh no, how embarrassing. Now, that was a sort of every time I thought about it, you know, in the years past that, since then, until one time I was giving this class on emotional detoxification, and it just sort of popped into my head, that particular memory. So what I did is I rewrote that situation. I had them all come in. I had them all go through, all except about 15 or 20 people. I had them all go through that door into this other guy's session. So his session was packed with people, and I had about 20 people. And just as I was about to begin, I got up to the podium, and the accordion thing swung open, and all 400 or 500 people, including the person giving the other session, yelled, "Surprise!" And they all came in and joined my session. And I must have had 500, 600, 800 people. Now the point is that we can change it the way we like to change it. Some people might say, well, you shouldn't have done that, you should have learned to live with this and learn to live with that. The point is, it's my life and it's my feelings. It didn't take anything away from him for me to do that. And now every time I think about it, I get sort of a funny feeling. I always laugh about it. So now I send the healing energy through my body. Rather than sending the terrible embarrassment through my body, I just send healing energy through my body. Now I'd like to give you the opportunity to try this. What we're going to do is go to the alpha level, and while at the alpha level, first of all, we're going to send messages to our subconscious mind that in any situation we will be at our top form, we will be confident, we will always do that which is best for ourselves and other people. Always remember that. Always do what's best for everyone, including yourself. If it's not good for other people, it's not going to happen anyway. We're going to do affirmations for stress reduction, and then we're going to do an emotional replaying. Just let a thought emerge while at the alpha level. If it's a positive thought, just congratulate yourself on it and feel it, and then let it go. If another positive thought comes up, do the same thing. Congratulate yourself, feel the positive energy, and let it go. But when a negative thought comes up, or a thought that reminds you of an experience that was hurtful, or that you would like to have been different in that situation, then do the emotional replaying in the same way that we did with Roy. Rewrite that. Allow yourself to get into the scenario until you feel that hurtful feeling, whether it's an extremely traumatic event, like a messy divorce, a death in the family, or something like that, or whether it's just a small thing like that example I gave you of when I was doing a workshop on suicide and bereavement. And feel that embarrassment, or feel that hurt, or feel that abandonment, or feel whatever you actually felt, and then change the script. Change it in the way that you would like it. For example, if there was a death in the family, you wouldn't perhaps change it so the person didn't die, but maybe there was something you wish you had said, something you wish you had done, something you would have done different in that last bit of time. That I think you can do. Certainly you can do that. You can rewrite it so that you did that wonderful thing. You could say goodbye. You could make that phone call. Whatever it is you wish you would have done, you just let your subconscious mind creatively do it so that you have that sense of positive sense and you send the healing energy through your own body. Okay, let's get going. Now, if you're lying on the floor, just put your hands to your side, uncross your legs. If you're seated in a chair, just put your hands comfortably on your lap. Close your eyes. Take a nice deep breath. And as you exhale, imagine the color red. And say to yourself, relax, relax, relax. Take another deep breath. And as you exhale, imagine purple. And say to yourself, healthier, healthier, healthier. Take another deep breath now. And as you exhale, imagine blue. And say to yourself, deeper, deeper, deeper. Now I'm going to count from 20 down to 10. And as I do, you'll feel yourself getting more relaxed, with a healthier level of mind. 20, 19, 18, more and more relaxed. 17, 16, 15, deeper and deeper. 14, 13, 12, healthier and more relaxed. 11, 10. Now focus your mind's eye on your forehead. Feel any tension there might be in your forehead and just release it. Just let it go. Just feel the tension dissipate from your forehead. Now your eyelids. You might feel them fluttering a little bit. That's okay. Just let the tension go. Just relax. That's right. Good. Now your jaw and your mouth. Feel any tension there and just let your jaw drop and relax. Now your neck. A lot of people carry tension in their neck. It's okay. Just feel any tension there is in your neck and just relax. Relax. Now your shoulders. Let your shoulders just slump down relaxed. And your arms and your hands. Feel any tension there is in your arms and your hands and just let it go. Now your chest. And your stomach. Just feel all tension being released from those parts of your body. Now go inside and relax your organs and your cells and your veins and your arteries and capillaries and all the tissue inside. Just relax. Totally relaxed. Totally peaceful. And now your hips and your thighs and your calves. Feel any tension in your hips and your thighs and your calves and just let it go. Just let it dissipate. And now your ankles and your feet and your toes. Starting from this little toe on each foot and working inward to the big toes, feel all tension being released and ride out your big toe. Now take a nice deep breath, and as you exhale, feel any tension anywhere in your body, from your forehead, the tip of your head, all the way down to your toes. Any tension, just relax. Good. Relax. Deeper and more relaxed. Now I'm going to count from 1 to 3. And as I do, just feel yourself being transported to to your ideal place of relaxation. 1, where you feel peaceful and safe, where you feel comfortable, where you feel healthy and aware, where you feel fabulous. 2, it's your own place, no one else's. No one can take it from you. It's your ideal place of relaxation. It might be a beach with the waves crashing on the shore. It could be a mountain stream. It could be your own bed. It could be a cloud. Anywhere it is for you, it's your special place where you feel peaceful and safe and relaxed. 3. Oh, so good. So peaceful. So relaxed. Now, at the alpha level, tell your subconscious mind that no matter what situation should arise, you will be able to handle it. You will be confident. You will always be able to do that which is best for everyone, including yourself. React immediately in the appropriate and creative way. Next time you have a speech to give, and you step up to the podium, you're going to go to the alpha level and relax, and you're going to wow them. Trust in your subconscious mind to be creative. Now take a nice deep breath here at your ideal place of relaxation. And let it out. You're deeper, more relaxed. Now let thoughts come to your mind, one at a time. When a thought comes to your mind, if it's positive, congratulate yourself and feel it. But if it's something that you would like to have been different or changed, then you just go ahead and let your subconscious mind do that. I'm going to give you a few minutes now to do this. And when you hear my voice again, we're going to be coming back up to the beta level. Begin. Okay, let's now go back up to the beta level. I'll count to 5. And when I do, you'll feel wide awake. 1. Feeling absolutely terrific. 2. As though you've had a nice nap of perhaps an hour or 2 hours, just full of energy, totally positive. 3. Realizing that at any time you choose, you can go back all by yourself to your ideal place of relaxation where you feel peaceful, where you feel safe, where you feel creative, where you feel just fantastic. 4. As though you've had a real nice nap, you feel positive, you feel terrific, you feel better than you felt, and you can't even remember how long. You just feel fantastic. 5. Okay. Let's stretch now. I always love doing this because I feel fantastic. I feel better than I've felt in a long, long time. In this class, we talked about alpha as being a matter of the brain putting out electromagnetic energy, which is measured in cycles per second. Between 14 and 60 cycles per second is beta, where you're conscious, you're thinking, you're throwing ideas and thoughts around. Between 7 and 14 cycles per second, you're at the alpha level. At the alpha level, you're in contact with your subconscious mind. Your body is doing its healing. The creative power of the universe is right there in your own subconscious. If you slow your brain waves down to 3.5 to 7 cycles per second, you're at the theta level. That's deep meditation. And below that, 0.5 to 3.5 is the delta level, which is the unconscious level. Now, the reason we want to be at the alpha level is that it's at that level of mind where you are both in contact with your conscious mind and with your subconscious. So you can use your conscious mind to program your subconscious mind or your memory bank, or to send affirmations or visualization, or whatever you choose. Okay, then we looked at stress. We saw how Roy stressed himself and didn't do well in his interview, whereas Sheila prepared for her interview and yet relied on the power of her subconscious mind to be the most creative, to come up with answers she never even thought she knew, because she was at the alpha level of mind. She was relaxed and she was confident. We then looked at the emotions, and we saw how just as we choose what thoughts we put into our subconscious or our memory bank, we also choose our emotions. We can choose to be happy and positive and send healing energy through our body, or we can choose to be negative, envious, jealous, a host of negative emotions. We can choose those and send poisons through our body. It's our choice. It's up to us. We also looked at how we can not only choose how we feel, but we can go back and review past experiences, and we can change our present experience of those past experiences. We can change the negative and toxic emotions that we've felt maybe for years into positive and healing ones. So this has been our emotional detoxification class. I wish you well.
This has been the second in the 6-tape Optimum Health Institute of San Diego video series. Over the years, many thousands of people have benefited from the program at the Optimum Health Institute of San Diego. It is now time to reach a larger audience. These videos have been produced by the Health Institute in order to spread the wonders of wheatgrass and the blessings of optimum health to the general public, and to assist you in maintaining the program at home. Each tape in the series addresses a different aspect of health, and together they present a complete, balanced, and proven program for achieving optimum physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. To obtain additional copies of this video, other videos in this series, or items mentioned in these videos, contact the Optimum Health Institute of San Diego at 6970 Central Avenue, Lemon Grove, California, 92045, or phone area code 619-464-3346.